I'm Yannick Gaultier. I'm a developer. I wrote extensions for a living. I've been doing that for Joomla and only for Joomla since 2009, something like that. I'm the developer of Set404Ceph and for SEO, WBAMP, various extensions, and they are all related to SEO and content. That's it.
And before Dimitri, I'm Olivier. I live in New York. I'm a French native. I create extensions for Joomla and doing some maintenance on websites. And I created this group with Yannick and Ewen, who is not here yet. He may show up. And he registered, so he should show up. And then that's about it. And maybe now Dimitri can introduce himself.
Yeah, and just get started. I'm going to mute myself. And Dimitris, the stage is yours.
Yes, hello, I'm Dimitris Child. I've been involved with Joomla since 3.4 in various things. Mainly I did a lot of work for Joomla 4, and I've done a couple of things for Joomla.
Hey, what are you doing?
All good? Hello?
No, go ahead, Dimitris.
Right. Okay, so let me start. So we're gonna talk a little bit about templates today because in Joomla 4.1 there is an interesting twist on the Joomla templates. And of course, when we talk about templates, usually people might think that we're gonna talk about Twig, which is a templating language on PHP, or Blade, which is another one used. It's very popular with Laravel-based applications, or even Masters. But the thing is that Joomla 4 doesn't use any of these templating engines. It's pure PHP and HTML. And this talk is going to be a little bit about child templates, but probably I'm gonna give you more views on other things that happen in Joomla 4.1. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the templating engine, how it works under the hood, what the child templates are, how they work, and stuff like that, and then a little bit of demo, and a demo maybe for some other stuff for 4.1. And if we have some time, then we can have some questions. So I said that Joomla templates are a new thing for 4.1, but that was a bit of a lie, because there are already merged, the code is already merged somehow since August 2020. So George did that part when I promised him that I'm gonna finish the UI part before 4.0, but that didn't happen because somehow we had to brought also Bootstrap 5 to 4.0, so we had to switch a little bit the context, and somehow we lost for the child templates for Joomla 4, and that's why we're announcing now child templates as a new feature for 4.1. But the base code was already available since 4.0. So let's talk a little bit about how the templating engine of Joomla works, how Joomla works, and how the actual templating part of the Joomla works. So let's take a simple example. Let's say that you open your browser and you're typing joomla.org, or maybe you're clicking on a link for joomla.org. What happens is that the browser, because it doesn't understand the human language, Joomla.org doesn't say anything for computer, it needs to do something that is called DNS resolution. It means that it needs to transform the Joomla.org to an IP, which it knows what it can do with an IP. Once it has the IP, it will reach to that IP, and that means that it will reach for the HTTP server where your Joomla.org is hosted. The server usually is a program like Apache or Nginx or Lightspeed or something similar. In the very, very simplified version of what a web server is doing is it will search the files and see if any of the files that is watching, that is supposed to serve, is matching the request that was given. In this case, it was joomla.org / it's a single URL without any file in there, so it's not falling into that bucket. So since the server doesn't know what to do, it doesn't have any file to respond with, it will reach to the next application and ask PHP to handle this request. And PHP, it will boot Joomla. It means that it will read the index.php at the root folder of Joomla. And then that process will start booting Joomla. That means it will start reading a lot more files, libraries, and stuff like that, and it will start executing the life cycle of Joomla. The important part for our conversation here is the routing. And the routing, basically what it does is it tries to figure out what a request, what component could handle the request. So it will go to all the installed components. This is a freely explanation. It's not happening like that. It's more complicated, but I'm simplifying things here. So it will go to all the templates and say, does any of you components know how to deal with this request that I have? And let's say for simplicity here that content is the one that serves the request that it was asked, the joomla.org, that was the request. Once that thing is established, that the routing knows where to give the request, it will hand it into the component part, and then the component will do the usual MVC thing, where the controller will put the model will fetch all the data from the database, it will pass it to the view part of the MVC, which is the /tmpl part on any component, which is basically the templating part for the component. Once all the data from the database was fetched, and you have also the markup from your TMPL file, then it will be just a single concatenation, and you have your first string, which is the string of the content. Once this step is done, it will reach to the next step of the process of the life cycle of Joomla, and that is to boot the template. And saying boot it means it will read again the index.php of your template. And the interesting part here is that all templates have some curious tags. It's like JDoc::includes. It will collect all these tags, rearrange them in the right order because the order is very important, and it will try to evaluate them. And what it means it try to evaluate is things like that, like if there is a JDoc::includes type equals component, that means evaluate this tag as if it was the component. But in this case, we already evaluated the content earlier, so it's just passing the string that we already had. But for things like if it is something like JDoc::includes type modules with the name menus, that means that please go and evaluate the position menus, and that means it will go and say, do I have any modules in the position menu? And if there is, let's say for simplicity here that there is only the module menu, it will go and execute a kind of MVC thing again, where it will go to the helper and get all the data from the database, concatenate again into the template part of the module this time, get the string and return it to the template. So once all this complicated, which is not very complicated, process happens, the template has the evaluated strings for all these JDoc::include parts, it will just replace them, and that will give us the HTML string that will be transmitted back to the browser, and that's how we get our web page displayed in our browser. The system is simplified and simply. It's not very hard for someone to follow. I mean, if you're a developer and you can set some breakpoints from the application and upwards, you can follow all these steps that I explained in these diagrams. It's not something very hard to figure out. So the idea with the child templates that is coming to 4.1 is that templates used to have some limitations for many years, and one of them was that people were trying to change their fav icon, and they will change their fav icon, but then once they had the update on the protostar or whatever template they were using, the fav icon will return back to what the protostar was giving by the update process. And that confused people, and it went a lot more difficult if you had to do a lot of work for layouts, and then you were losing all this work because an update happened and you lost everything. So the idea of the child templates is something very simple. It follows also the idea that WordPress is doing for many years. Child template is just a template with one file, template details.xml, nothing else. All the other functionality and static assets and everything comes from the parent template. It goes without no saying that you cannot have a child template without a parent template. So that file looks, the contents of the template details.xml for a child template look like this in my screen, and it's basically the same, almost the same as in the parent, apart from the last two lines, the inheritable 0, which means that this is its child, template, and the parent with the name of the template that is the actual parent. There is something that probably will make some people mad, and that is the media folder. I'm gonna talk about this in a bit. The templates in 4.1, the basic templates that come out with Joomla, like Cassiopeia and Outlook, now look like this. So they have only the layouts and only the PHP files and the Joomla asset in their folder. That means they're missing the JS, CSS, and SAS and images folder, which have moved to the media folder in the root directory. For a parent template, the only change is the media part that have moved from the actual template to the root, to the media folder at the root folder. And also the thing that they get one more tag in their template details.xml, and that tag is like in line 10, inheritable one. That means that this template can have child templates. The reasons that the static assets were moved from the template folder to the media folder, there are two. The first one is security reasons. All PHP files in a Joomla installation have this line defined underscore jexec or die, which basically means if this jexec is not defined, that means this is an entry point and you shouldn't continue. And the problem is that if you remove this line, then this file becomes an entry point. And the idea that this could become an entry point was very bad. And it was tried to be mitigated for the libraries folder for Joomla 4.0 by having HT access in that folder. But the idea is the same, that static assets should be served from one place because that is easier for the users to strengthen their security. And the other reason, apart from the security, is that the templates were the only extension that was doing their own assets in their own folders. So there wasn't consistent with all the other extensions in the ecosystem of Joomla. I have written already one small CLI, Node CLI application. You can find it in this address. You can give it either a template folder or a template.zip, a zip file with a template, and it will try to do all the conversion, like get the files from the one folder to the other and put the right tags that were missing. And you will be almost there converting your existing templates to child templates. But you can do it yourself. It's just moving few folders around and just adding one tag, an inheritable one. It's not something hard. There are some people that already expressed that their templates will be available, and that is Joomla41 by Karen Walsh. Charlie has the Lightning and Joomla 4 backend template, and you can play also with my PW8 template called Sloth. All of them there are, I think, available right now. For developers, there is one. There are three things that need some attention. If you have any code that programmatically sets a template, you have to be aware that the template might be child template, so you have to probably check if your code is still working as you expect to work. Also, if you're doing any weird installation part where you're moving files from one place to another to some template static files and stuff like that, or you have to check also that this doesn't break with a child template or the new template static assets at the media folder. And also, if you ever have any code that overrides or does anything weird with the template view of comp templates, that view has also some breaking changes. And I think we can see a little bit in action. I've prepared an installation here. This is 4.1 RC RC1. I think the one that Benjamin released yesterday. So I'm just gonna install this. Let's give one name. The installation procedure is the same, and the upgrade procedure is exactly the same. So the 4.1 doesn't bring major breaking changes. I'm gonna install the blog data just to have some data to know what we're doing. Right, and so the one thing that is different here is that the editor has this new button, create child templates. It used to have a button here that it was named copy templates, if I remember well. I think it was copy templates. Okay, and the other thing is that the media files are in their own folder here, their own folder structure here. So creating a child template is as easy as typing a name. Let's say testing, let's say. And once you create a child template, that will appear here in the templates, but also you will have a new style here. So to have an idea, this is the basic Joomla template with the Cassiopeia template, right? And that's interesting, sorry. And if I switch the template by changing the default or by saying to the menu toggle everything to the child template and visit, it's exactly the same. So we have the child template, which is basically an exact copy of the parent template, but the interesting part is that the child template has only this template.xml and all these folders are empty. There's nothing there. But the interesting thing is that once you have this XML, you can say, I can go here and add another position and say, I don't know, USA. Why not? And if you go to the modules, front-end modules, site modules, and let's say the image, if you scroll to the Cassiopeia tested, which is the child template, you definitely gonna find the USA position. But if I save this module to this position and try to, probably it's this one, I'm not so sure. So if I try now to refresh the front end, yes, we just lost the module. But no worries, because what we can do is we can go to the parent template, open the index.php, copy all the contents of that file, close this file, close this template, go to the child template and say new file. I want it to be created into this position, named index.php, create, paste, and now if I, let's say, copy this line, and probably this will break things because I haven't tested this part. But if you change the module, the name part here to USA, and we press save here, we should have something, I guess, above the Cassiopeia. And yes, we have. Of course, it broke because it's not supposed to go there, this module, but you get the idea. The idea is that you can have custom module positions by just having to care about one file instead of forking the template and having to care about all the files. And it's not easy to care about all the files because Cassiopeia has, I don't know, hundreds of files. You have all these layouts, and then you have all these CSS, and you have all these things, and all these things will gonna collide because every time that Joomla updates, you will have to check each and every file that the contents are correct, like nothing happened there. But it goes a little bit more interesting and template part. So another thing that you can do very easily once you have a child template is you can have your own fields. Let's name this one my JS, let's say. Change the type to text area. Say GA analytics and nothing more. So if I save this one, now if I go back to the styles of this child template, sorry, and check the advanced tab, at the bottom I have my GA analytics. And basically you can have something here like the actual code for your analytics. For the time being, I'm just gonna console log hi, because why not? Just to show you the process of doing some custom code on the child template. So if I try to check if that thing is available in the template by inspecting and say probably it should be in the head of the document, but it's not. it's not because we never said to the template to do something. And you can do it either by the web assets or the older API. I'm just gonna do it for the time being. I'm just gonna do it inline, but this is not the preferable way of doing things in Joomla, because this doesn't have any idea of the nonce, so it will break your CSP of the website. So you shouldn't append script tags, never, ever. You should always use either web assets or the HTML helper. But for the time being, and for lack of time, we'll do it like this. So this is PHP echo, and we'll say this, which refers to the document, params, which are the parameters of the template, get, and then we'll say my JS. I think that was the name. If I close the tag and close the PHP tag and save it, and I have this console high, and pretty sure that the high is in the console of the browser. That means that it actually works. It's not only in the head of the document, but it actually logged high in the JavaScript part of the execution. Other interesting things that you can do is, let's say, most of the times people do user.css files for their templates. Now you have another option that you can do a template.css. It will not look like that. Template.css. And if I create this, but the thing is that then I cannot actually, I don't want to copy paste all the contents of the parent template, right? So there must be a better way. And I'm gonna switch a little bit to the code here to show you what is happening. So the static assets are in the templates under the root media, and there are in either an administrator folder or a site, which I think is pretty explanatory, that the administrator refers to administrator part of the site and the site is the front end. So the idea is that you want to have, let's say, the template.css loading here, which is the child. What you can do is you can do something very interesting, like import. And it's not like that, it's like that. If you go back one folder, that means it will take you here. But if you go one more, it will take you here. And then you can say Cassiopeia, not there. Let's see. Yeah, sorry, I have to go one folder down. But let's get the .min.css. This is a problem with the backend code that exists right now, is that we cannot have .min files in. It's not easy to handle them. That's why I came here. So if we have this file, right, and we save it, hopefully, what you will see is, let's check a little bit before I do it. So if we go to the sources, network sources, okay. If you go to the CSS part, we will find the template. It goes from media, template site, Cassiopeia, CSS, template.min.css, right? So hopefully if I did it correctly, this time the file, the CSS that is loaded from template site, the children template, the child template, the CSS, the parent template CSS. No, this is the child template CSS, but it's actually loading the parent template with just one line of code. And I'm pretty sure that people will find this very interesting, because then you can have extending this, and then on top you have also the user.css part. So you have a lot more options. That's what I'm trying to say. And of course, I broke things badly here.
Dimitris, I have a question. If you're going to, it's two questions. If you're going to use a child template, how do you package that up so you can then install your child on another website? Are we just taking the Cassiopeia template, then just take the two files and then create another child? Like, because as you know, we manage a lot of sites. So if we create this child template, we're going to need to be able to package it all up together to then put that onto another site. Is that possible? Or
the thing is that right now there's no tooling for that. You can definitely do it manually, and the manual part is extremely easy. Like if I go to the Cassiopeia, right, and I get these three things that also belong to the child children template, and if I'm gonna change just the name here. So from Cassiopeia tested, let's say Duke Z, I don't know, something like that. I'm gonna change. It's only two changes. The name, right?
Yep.
You want to change the name, because if you're doing it, probably maybe you don't want to change the name. And this one, right? And if I have to switch. Sorry, I have to switch to. Hold on. Do I have empty desktop? So you have to switch just to your Finder or file manager, depending on the operating system, just to compress it. Basically, as you collect all these things, you compress them, and once you have all of them compressed, you can then go and install them like any other template. Is the child templates are not some weird interpretation. Is an actual template, but it just misses all of the files.
But I'm just installing the files from the child. I'm not reinstalling Cassiopeia.
Yes, exactly.
How will it know to put it as a child of Cassiopeia when it's installed?
So let me just...
Which may relate to Olivier's question about the database, because if it's just files, we could just create a folder and throw the files in there. But if there's a database connection, then we have to make sure that that is done properly.
It's declared in the template details XML. You declare which template is the parent.
Exactly. So all the data that any template is getting now on the installation time they're getting it from the template details.xml. It's the same also for the components and all other extensions for Joomla. The initial setup the initial data that will go to the database is provided from the template details.xml. So if I now install that zip, of course I did something wrong, but yeah, I don't know why. I'm guessing that if I go here, you will see that I have the Joomla J, and it still has this. Okay, yeah. So I know what I did wrong. So in this template that I created, I added one file, which then I forgot to say that the child template right now in the definition says it has only one file, but I also had the index.php, which I should also add it here, like so, like index.php, and then compress it, because now it's missing one of the files. So I'm guessing that somebody, because it's not a really difficult problem to solve, somebody can come up with a simple extension and say, okay, if you have any child template, you can create an installable zip from that.
Would you recommend that I possibly make a request on GitHub for 4.2? So this seems pretty important. I mean, the child templates are really powerful, but we have to be able to manage them.
What I would think is that, can you like any extension discover a template in Joomla?
Yes. So okay, let's do something else. I'm gonna uninstall this. So as I say, these are real templates. It's not some weird thing. So you can manage them, installation, uninstallation, and stuff like that from the manager, extension manager. So you can go here and say, this one I want to be uninstalled. And I will do something else. I will copy this to another and say new. Very, very nice name. And if I change the two things here to new, and here this one, and this time I will not change, because I think that the discover is okay with this. So if I go to discover, it already figured out that there is one template new. And if I install it, it should install that template. And if I go to the templates, it should be another template new, which has all the files and stuff like that. The template folder is not writable. Yeah, okay. Yeah. No. Okay. There is a bug here. Thank you.
It's good. I mean, if Laura has to install templates manually on different websites, if you can discover them, then it's easier to include into the database.
I think it's better to follow the installation, like provide the zip and install it. I mean, if you're doing distributed work, it's easier for you to have, let's say, somewhere in GitHub or whatever, where you give an URL and say, okay, install this file. It's much easier.
If I understand this correctly, I think the biggest work lies into making the existing template accept child templates, right? There is a conversion that needs to take place. So you cannot just add a child, you cannot just update to Joomla 4.1 and then start adding child templates. Child templates only work with templates that are suited for that. So they need to be a conversion. And you mentioned you have. I have one question about that. You mentioned having a small program, a small CLI to do that conversion. Are you saying this can be automated for pretty much any template?
Yes, yes and no. For most parts, the conversion script will work. Will get you like 90% of the work done. But there are some things that the script cannot easily go and do. Things like I will show you in a moment. I'm just trying to find where that thing is. The only thing that the script cannot do is do any transformations inside any PHP file. It will add the inheritable tag that is needed for the templates that support child templates. It will take all your static assets that need to be moved to the right folder automatically. Forget about this namespace, it never happened for 4.1. But it will not do like things, if you have hard-coded things like template, most templates used to have things like this base folder or something like that, and this is very hard for a script to figure out without breaking to do it just by statically analyzing PHP file. So there is a little bit of work that needs to be done after running this script, but most of the work should be done for the developer just by running this script. Hopefully, if I did it right.
Okay.
Yeah, the script also is you don't have to install anything. Once you have Node installed on your machine, you just run npx one of these lines, either if you provided a template folder or a template zip, and it will give you back another zip, and you can unzip it and do.
Would you consider rewriting this as a PHP tool or even integrated into Joomla? Because running npx, I mean, having Node is not something that will happen on all shared hosting. Your Node is just not going to be available. So it would make sense to have that as a PHP script, I think, rather than Node.
Maybe it's much easier to do something else because the process, the parts for this to happen is that you just fix the XML basically. So you can just with simple XML you can do it in PHP, read the XML and then rearrange. Yeah. It needs to be rearranged, delete and insert things, and then you get the files and put them. So it's not like most intelligent thing that I did, but yeah, I'm guessing that if people want, we can have the same version for PHP. It's not few lines. It's not even that big.
And I had also a question about overriding CSS and JavaScript file from the parent template. Usually, these files are, especially in JavaScript, these files are bundled together. And how does that work? Because if you have a template with several CSS files and then they are bundled somehow, and the template is managing that, and you want to override just one CSS file, make a small change, then I guess you don't have all the bundling logic, or the bundling logic is not going to take into account your override, right? Unless the template is specially equipped to do that.
Yes, the thing is that you have to be extremely careful when you're overriding what your expectations are, because if you override things and you expect that they will work in one way, but that may not be the exact outcome that you will have. So let's take the template, the Cassiopeia, which has, I think it has the colors. So basically, you can have colors like that for the primary, and I think if you go on the backend, there is like a switch or something like that. You can switch between them or something like that. Yes, there is the color like standard and alternative. So if you want to override this, it's not that hard. You have to take into consideration what is already there. Like if you use the same exact CSS variables here, it will work. You can add your own to expand it. But if you not include these ones and you expect to work, it will never work. There's no magic into the child template that it will try to figure out what you expect to happen. You have to be careful on what data you provide and what your expectations are. It cannot figure out things for you. But for the time being, let's say if we take this one and directly put it into the template and say, I don't know, purple. That's not purple. Dark gray, dark blue, magenta. I have no idea what this thing is, how it will look like, but let's try. Nothing happened. Okay, why?
Yeah, don't worry too much about that. It's fine. It's just a question of principle.
The idea is that if you're overriding things in the respecting the CSS variables and the JavaScript variables and stuff like that, you can do things without breaking things. But if you try to introduce things, you have to be aware of what already exists and what your aim is.
Okay, I have one more question. I apologize if you answered this already. It's back to the overrides, and I know Yannick was talking about the override of just CSS, but what if I created a custom field override, which we've done in our current template. So in our current template, there's an HTML folder, and then within that, I have a custom field override for URL fields, let's say. So is it better to put that override in main Cassiopeia, or is it better to put it inside of my child?
So this works a little bit like the cascading of CSS. If you put it inside your Cassiopeia template, and then you create child templates, the child will inherit the override from the Cassiopeia. So you don't have to do it in each and every child template.
So then if I do that, I would want to zip up both Cassiopeia and my child right? Because now my template includes custom code in both places, which is fine. Okay. And that's how we package it.
So, sorry, I misunderstood the use case. So if you want to deliver the child template as a package for installation, you will have to do all the work in the child template. But if you're doing it in an installation and say, okay, I want this override to be inherited to all the styles that might be applied to this website, because let's say maybe you have a multilingual website and you have like 5 different styles here. Each one will have its own default for default language, like English, French, Greek, Italian, German, I don't know. So once you have 5 or 6 of them here for a multilingual website, then it's repeated work. So depends on the use case. It might be better for you to do it in the parent template in the Cassiopeia, or it might be better if it's one-off, like you have only one style, you do it directly into your child template, and you just care about your child template.
Okay, so that's a decision we'll have to make in the beginning. That's good to know. We would only have one child template, but we have to decide where we'll keep any custom HTML overrides. So that's an important thing to think about. Okay, thank you.
The rule of thumb for the HTML overrides is that you only need to have overrides on the child template only for the files that already exist in your parent template, because then you're overriding the overrides of the template. It's the inheritability that I talked about. Is like you have the template of the component, and then if you override it in the parent template, and then if you go one more step and you override it in the child template. So you have a lot of options. Depends on the use case. So sometimes you will find it easier to do it this way or the other way. It's up to you. I mean,
I think I'd be concerned that if we did it in the Cassiopeia, it would be overwritten by an update to Cassiopeia.
no, so the
No,
thing,
it won't, because it's separate files that it doesn't,
Okay.
I want to touch that.
Okay.
Cassiopeia will update if you try to override. I don't know if you see my screen. If you try to override these files, the ones that already exist in Cassiopeia, this will be overwritten. So you cannot touch those files in Cassiopeia. You have to create a child template and override them in the child template. But if you're creating an override for, let's say, content, you can actually put it here and in Cassiopeia and it will be fine.
Can you confirm? I think I saw that before in your files, but can you have a child of a child? Because that would be a good solution for what Laura is saying. Because you could put the shared overrides, if you will, or the shared stuff in the starting in a starting child or a base child template, and then you could have the French child template extends that base, so it has the custom fields, but it has the custom, so the custom fields are in the shared child template, but the French specific stuff is in the French child template, and the English one is in the. So you see, you can cascade them. So the shared stuff is still in the shared component, but not in Cassiopeia, because Cassiopeia you're not going to be able to zip your version of Cassiopeia, because or else you'll have to do an update of your zip each time there is an update of Cassiopeia. So it's going to be tricky. So the short question is, can the child templates cascade like this or not?
No, the reason it's not the HTML part, the layouts part, but the static assets part. And for the static assets part, the short answer is that there is one helper that automatically goes and finds the overrides for the JS and CSS and files and stuff like that. And if we were going to do it in a cascading manner, like you can have 3 or 4 or n number of subfolders, then this the number of folders that the actual script will have to look for the overrides of the CSS, JS, blah blah, all the static assets, it was getting extremely big. So it was a performance issue that prevented this feature to have cascading. It was being fast. So the short answer is it doesn't support, but maybe you can do it like with other clever ways.
Okay. Laura and the Jersey bunch, we are. It's you're up 20 minutes from now, so I guess we have to. Is there any other question or something? Anyone want to ask any question?
If the group wants to stay in, I'm going to jump out, but if anybody has specific questions, but I think the concept of overrides and child and installing them and packaging them is a very important piece that needs to be kind of cleaned up, either not saying that more code is to be written, but some kind of suggestion, because if we're going to put that out there, we want to be very clear on how people should utilize it.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
The WordPress has this thing, the child themes, we call them child templates, they call them child themes. It's exactly the same. They provide zero UI. Zero. Like they say, you open this file and you start doing. I mean, if anybody can go to the WordPress documentation and they say like you create this file, functions.php and stuff like that. Joomla already has not the best, but at least it has some tools that can help you do things visually. Now, if somebody wants to write, because writing a component for packaging templates is pretty easy. Like you will say it can just list the templates and say, okay, package this template with this name and stuff like that. It's not very hard, but the idea is that this has to be part of core Joomla. I'm not convinced that it's like what 90% of the people will want.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be core. I'm
Yeah.
just saying to come up with something. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily need to be part of core, but the concept of overrides is really important to the Joomla developers, not just developers, any website managers, and where to put those are really important to think that through, to do that properly.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
not happy at all that we ended up having the old com templates, because to be honest, I had started the work for com templates 1.5 years ago when I started this child templates thing, and that was a complete rewriting of com templates, and had very nice user interface and better. And the thing is that we couldn't have it in Joomla 4.0, and for 4.1, unfortunately, that had a lot of backward compatibility issues, and so it has to wait for Joomla 5.
Okay, we'll see. Which is Joomla 5 is like the end of the year, right? It's 2022, or is it? No. Oh, okay.
That is 2020.
Thank you again. I'm gonna.
Yeah. See you later. Okay. I just have a quick question. If you have a few minutes, you mentioned it's setting up the template programmatically is different from J4, or from the past, let's say. How so?
I think that you actually created a pull request for the bug that existed in 4.0. I think it was you.
I don't know. I remember. Yeah, I remember.
You-
I
you-
had to work around that, but what I'm concerned about is whether this is changing from before, like the introduction of the child template. Is that will the code that changes the template today in Joomla 4 will it keep going on Joomla 4.1, or is it something that needs to be reviewed?
No, I think that what was broken, it was broken before 4.0, and
Yeah.
I think it was your pull request.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, I remember having something about that.
So I think that there are two ways to set a template programmatically, either by setting string or an ID or something like that, and the other one is by setting an object. I don't.
Yeah, it's something like that. And you would do set template, but it was expecting something and it was receiving something else, and it was working by chance. And so there's something like that. But I'm just saying, is this what you're talking about, or?
Yes, the only thing I think that it needs just checking is that you have to give it, I think, an object, and in that object you have to say that this is inheritable or it has a parent. Like you say, this is
Correct.
new type of template, or this is the new type of template, but this is a child. Like two parameters in an object. I think it's all
Okay. Okay, no worries. It's fine. That's what I expected. So it's totally fine. Okay, I'm out of questions.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much, Dimitris.
Thanks for your talk.
Yeah. I mean, there's a
Um,
lot of potential. I mean, it really answers a few questions about, I have clients sometimes that just ask for add a new position to a template or things like that. It's much easier to do now with child templates. It answers those kinds of questions.
The important thing I think with the child templates is that it actually levels up the field for template creators, because till this 4.1, you had either to fork a template to do some weird thing, or it wasn't good neither for the authors of the template, neither for the consumers of the template. That's okay, I want to do a little bit more, but if I do it, then on your update you will destroy it. Yeah, it didn't feel so. I think that leveling up this
It gives you a middle ground, so you don't have to create a whole new template. You can just use one that exists and modify it a little bit to your need.
just the 1 to 5 instead of
Yeah.
having to care for all of Cassiopeia or I don't know what else.
Yeah, definitely.
okay, excellent.
Thank you very much,
Uh,
Dimitris, again, and
Thanks again.